Assalamu alaikum, fam. Hope you're doing well. We're gonna continue reading Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, and it's highly nerdy, highly wonderful, and his name is quite renowned, and we will see why. Post tense. Let's begin. Okay. And for the matter or substance of the invisible agents, so fancied, they could not, by natural cogitation, fall upon any other concept, but that it was the same with that of the soul of man. What's interesting here is that he spells soul instead of S-O-U-L, he puts S-O-U-L-E. Kind of shows you how the spelling has really changed. And that soul of man was of the same substance with that which appeared in a dream to one that sleepeth, or in a looking glass to one that is awake, which men not knowing that such apparitions are nothing else but creatures of the fancy. So notice this, the looking glass, the mirror, nothing but a creature of fancy. That's quite strange. Think to be real. So here it's almost like he's saying what's your reflection is not necessarily real. And external substances, and therefore call them ghosts, as the Latins called them imagines. And now, so here, he's also talking about apparitions. So, spirits, ghosts, very strange. And though them spirits, that is, thin aerial bodies, okay, so spirits, he's calling them, thin aerial bodies. So like of this very light material, atom arrangement. And those invisible agents which they fear. So here he's getting at invisible agents. Really, he's trying to be kind, it sounds like, with how he talks about the soul and ghosts. But it almost sounds like, he's reducing it down to being just mere superstitions instead of something very unique. To be like them, save that they appear and vanish when they please, but the opinion that such spirits were incorporeal or immaterial. So what do you get here? Spirits being incorporeal, immaterial. Could never enter into the mind of any man by nature. So here, it's like a border of the brain, where he's contending that you can see, maybe you might see something of that nature, or even if you don't see it, it still cannot go into your brain, right? Still cannot go into you. Now, I wonder if he talks about possession then. Because though men may put together words of contradictory signification, as spirit and incorporeal, yet, so incorporeal, think about it, an incorporeal entity means it cannot be incorporated into you, cannot become part of you, inseparable from you. It's something different, cannot braid itself to your soul. Yet they can never have the imagination of anything to them. Okay, so yet they can never have the imagination of anything answering to them. And therefore, men that by their own meditation arrive to the acknowledgement of the infinite. Okay, so men by their own meditation arrive at the acknowledgement of the infinite, omnipotent, and eternal God. So here, self-reflection, if you ponder upon the signs of the universe that I would say that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala lays down, you come to the conclusion that there's something there. Now, this is something atheists don't do, right? There's a big difference between those who are monotheists and those who are atheists. And then with polytheists, it's almost like they see too much in everything, right? Like, oh, this tree is so old, it has a spirit. This woods has spirits in it. Like they go pretty nuts with their polytheism. But here, you see that an infinite creator who is not limited is there, right? Like look up at the sky, you just see like this, you're there. It's all there. You can't get out of the vision of God. So at least in that part, he's acknowledging, people will do some self-reflection and come to the conclusion that there is something out there, and it's not just like incorporeal spirits running rampant and playing with human brains. Choose rather to confess he is incomprehensible. Yeah, right? That people will choose that God is incomprehensible. We cannot fully understand God. I know atheists like to pick on that, but it does show you at least it's more humble to say what you do not know than pretend like a human being could literally say that there is no God. It's really strange. They found components, right? Oh, they know chemistry, they know laws of physics, therefore there's no God. It's like, geez, man. Who's more arrogant? The one who lives in a way as if they'll be held accountable to a higher being with a record of their life laid out before them, or the one who decides to mock God and break, sanctity, to be putrid, to remove boundaries of modesty, virtue, and excellence in favor of the deprived, right? And above their understanding, then to define his nature by spirit and corporal. So, that's a good point. People would rather say, God is incomprehensible, it's above our understanding. They'd rather say that than say, God is, a spiritual and corporal entity, right? Then confess their definition to be unintelligible. So, look at that. Some people don't want to, well, they shouldn't, because look, this is the cool part, because now you're seeing something come in here. So he's contending, people will give a definition of God, it'll be unintelligible to many. So many will just say, you know what, God is omnipotent, above our understanding, because no definition that we can give will make sense to everyone. Therefore, we just say, that we can't define God, which is smart, right? Because as a Muslim, I would say we can't compare God to anything in the creation, right? We cannot, nothing in this world will accurately represent him, and our eyes are so limited, right? Just the shape of our eyes, we can't really see very good at night. We are limited by our five senses. So of course, an entity that is capable of creating orbits, creating the brain of an ant, creating a plant's root system, creating the possibility of, mushrooms to grow out from the soil, all these amazing things. Of course, we are not going to be able to define that in a way that words can do justice by, because words are just the sounds we make with our mouths to map up and code our existence and to share our consciousness to be able to communicate with other people, right? So it is better to just say that, God is above our understanding. Atheists seem to really want to define everything, right? Even though language shifts over time. 16th century English is not the same English you see these trap rappers using in their songs, right? Texting LOL, someone in the 15th century is going to be like, what are you talking about, right? Things change. Language changes, but God stays the same. So even if someone was able to create, a fraction of a percent about what they perceive God to be, it's still not going to do justice. So as a Muslim, I would look at the names and attributes of God, reflect upon that, and just do my best to do righteous deeds, stay out of trouble, right? And earn paradise. That's my job. Our job isn't to go and figure out and write a book about what God is to the exact point, because that's not possible. Humans can't even do that with so many things in our reality, let alone the creator of the universe. But that's the ego. I don't want to say just like the ego, but it's like this disdain for authority, accountability, discipline, restriction, and, really unable to adapt type of consciousness that exists within certain atheists, right? Because there's a marketing type of persona that comes with being a neckbeard, fedora-wearing atheist, edgelord, who, is very degenerate, really into drugs, really into, heavy metal. Certain people have a consciousness where you can understand, of course, these are very rebellious people. They want a definition for God, but yet won't read any text to find out. Instead, they take the word for a scientist who supposedly has done some experiments, and they blindly trust a lab coat, but then will mock you for saying you don't know what God looks like, what God is, right? They'll mock you for that, but then they believe, anything that comes out of the mouth of certain scientists. As long as they have a great PR marketing strategy, right? They have people who guide them in their speech, read off of teleprompters, tell them what to say. They'll trust them. But if you say you don't know what God is and you're just going to do the best you can, they mock you for it. It's really quite strange. So he's getting at a very cool point here. Or, if they give him such a title, it is not dogmatically, with intention to make the divine nature understood. So, not dogmatically, but piously, to honor him with attributes and signification. Aha! Look at that. Look at that. He mentions attributes. Right? And that the attributes will help you to be more pious because you'll honor God through looking at the attributes and then looking at the attributes significations. Very good point, you see? As remote as they can from the grossness of the bodies visible. Yeah, Yeah, he has a very good point here. He did something very surprising. I thought he was going to go more negative, but he didn't. So here he's in, understanding that there are external substances that people see. There's apparitions that seem to be, creatures of fancy, right? Ghosts and such. But he understands the immaterial cannot enter into the mind of man, and that humans create contradictory words, so that's a limitation. And then he said that spirit and corporal were part of that contradictory signification. And then he further states that if someone meditates, they'll arrive and acknowledge at seeing that God is one infinite, omnipotent, eternal being, and that he is incomprehensible to the human mind and above our understanding, and he rather not define his nature by spirit and corporal, and would actually prefer to confess the definition to be unintelligible instead of giving, a strange, unintelligible response that no one will understand. Then he goes to say that a title will be given to God through attributes and significations, and that it will be more pious, and that will be a service to God in terms of honoring God. And we can see he contends the grossness of the bodies visible. So we see the imperfections in the visible bodies, and acknowledge that there are, as he said, invisible agents. So with these elements in our reality, we can realize that, this world is not so easily defined, and definitely not so easily defined by words, right? So, very cool points here for us to think about. I really like that. What do you think? Do you agree with Hobbes? What's he got going on here?